India loves SUVs, but one of India's largest car maker, Hyundai, hasn't had a very illustrious past when it comes to this particular body style. But before the launch of the Creta last year, they were very confident that the time was now right to be a part of as many SUV segments as possible. So bridging the gap between the Creta and the Santa Fe is this, the Tucson, a car that gets its name from an American coast town. And we have heard that name before. The first generation Tucson made its debut in India back in the early 2000s but failed to make a mark on the audience. But times have changed and the third generation model has a lot going for it. It begins with its striking design. Hyundai has cracked the code at making handsome looking cars, and the Tucson, which is designed in Germany, is easily one of the best offerings within Hyundai's crossover portfolio. It does have certain bits that resemble the Creta and the Santa Fe, but the Tucson has plenty to distinguish itself. The wide face looks great, while the sleek headlights get distinctive dual projectors that add a hint of sophistication to the design. The latter come with halogens or LEDs depending on the variant that you choose. Top spec trims also get LED DRLs and cornering lamps. The black cladding all around and the roof rails add to its tough character. The side profile too looks quite smart with the 18-inch wheels and the quirky design for the wheel arches. These, along with the pinched glass house, give the side profile a racy, pull-back stance. Look at it from any angle and the Tucson comes across as a sleek and sporty crossover than a bulky one. And that is quite refreshing after the kind of mark that the Captiva and the Koleos left on this segment before getting discontinued. The Tucson boasts of a drag coefficient of 0.33, which is quite slippery for an SUV. Adding more sportiness to the Tucson's design is the tailgate, which gets a nice contouring, twin tailpipes and a roof spoiler. The wraparound taillights are typical to the new SUV designs at Hyundai and help add a sense of width to the car. It's wide, it's long, and the roominess of the cabin is evident the moment you get inside the cabin. The colors and the layout will essentially remind you of the Creta, but the equipment levels are much higher as expected. Taking center stage is an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system similar to the one in the Elantra. The display is crisp and the OS has an intuitive interface. However, this operating system has frozen on me in the past in other Hyundai cars, and I hope with the Tucson they have fixed the bugs, though I'm not too sure because I've been told that the Elantra and the Tucson have the same version of the software. Apart from an India-friendly Map My India satellite navigation system, it also gets smartphone integration. The system is designed by Mobis, and like most other Hyundai cars, the audio quality of the 6-speaker setup is one of the best in class and won't need you to look for aftermarket options. On the top spec trims, you also get a dual zone climate control system, and it comes with Hyundai's trademark air purification system, something that all my friends in Delhi are going to be badly wanting right now. There is one USB port and 3 12-volt sockets in the car, 2 at the front, none for the second row, and 1 in the boot. The boot is quite large and can swallow 2 medium-sized suitcases and neatly tucks away a full-size spare wheel. Proximity sensing mechanism in the boot, and the key will basically tell the car that you're close to the car, and you basically have a hands-free boot opening mechanism like that. As you can see, it's a power tailgate, and you can also adjust the maximum openable height for this and store it in the memory. For example, this is the maximum openable height right now. Maybe I want to set it a little lower here. So I keep the switch pressed, I get 2 beeps and it tells me that it's stored in the memory. It's a similar function that you have on the Fortuner as well. It was a best in class and the first in class feature for the Fortuner. Unfortunately, the Tucson steals the thunder away from it. The front seats are generously sized and the contouring is comfortable and supportive. The driver's seat is 10-way power adjustable, including lumbar support, but I wish they were ventilated too, like in the Elantra. So with the driver's seat set to my driving preference, there's plenty of room in the second row, plenty of knee room, plenty of headroom, won't get that claustrophobic feeling in here. Even for the second row, you get this reclining function, which is again going to come in handy on long distance drives. You also get a 60-40 split for the seats, which means you can also manage your cargo space better. You also get rear AC vents, and there are plenty of storage spaces that have been littered around in the cabin, which basically again helps it during long road trips. The overall feel of the cabin is quite plush. soft touch plastics on the dashboard and other touch points instantly establish this as a premium car. It has some clever touches too, like the side passenger seat belts for example, which have an adjustable angle to accommodate passengers of various sizes. Other standard features include automatic headlamps and wipers and cruise control. Now recently we have had a lot of readers and viewers write into us complaining about the lack of sunroofs in cars like these. Now to me it doesn't really sound like a big deal, because apart from the hazard of letting your kids or friends stick around their heads from the sunroof, it doesn't really solve much purpose in a place like India. If anything, it's just additional cooling time and load on the air conditioning system, and rattles and leaks with age. The Tucson looks like it will age well though. The fit and finish is amazing and there's a sense of robustness all around. While the exterior shouts sporty, the cabin hints towards luxury and comfort. Its sound deadening is on par with cars from a segment higher and nicely cuts out the wind and road noise. The Tucson's cabin then is a pleasantly quiet place to be in. So like the cabin, even the ride quality of this car tilts towards plushness and comfort. Of course, by that I don't mean that it is overtly soft, not like most other Hyundais. If anything, with that multi-link rear, it does have a bit of a firm feeling. It feels a little firm like a European car. But the bump absorption capabilities of this car are simply amazing. It just glides over undulations and potholes, and the suspension doesn't make too much noise about it either. Around bends, body control is quite good. It is only when you start pushing the car at extreme speeds that you will feel some unnerving vertical movement as the front starts feeling squishy. Treat it like an SUV though, and it will oblige with quite a confident feel. The grip from the tires seems quite good too, but we will comment on that once we spend more time with the car. But so far, the handling seems well sorted. So apart from the ride and handling, the other department that we closely monitor with a Hyundai is steering feel. Now with the Elantra, they definitely showed improvement, and with the Tucson, it goes a notch forward. It does weigh up quite nicely. It's quite well weighted. In fact, you can also make it a little heavier if you want. With the manual transmission, you get an option to do that. But despite that added weight, it still lacks a bit of feedback. It's certainly much better than the other Hyundais that we've driven so far. It is an improvement. But when you're driving around switchbacks, you will feel the artificial nature of the electrical assistance getting highlighted. You will not feel that the steering is as precise as the weight might otherwise suggest. The steering doesn't feel as featherweight as a typical Hyundai, and that may upset a few loyalists. But in a nutshell, the steering has improved and the development is headed in the right direction. Moving on to the drivetrains, Hyundai is offering this car with two engine options, and both can be had with a manual or an automatic transmission. The petrol option comes from the 2-litre new or NU series of engines that debuted with the Elantra. The tuning is slightly different. It makes marginally more power than the Elantra, but I expect the characteristics of the engine to remain the same. Hyundai is claiming a fuel economy of around 13 km to a litre for this engine. On our invitational drive, Hyundai didn't bring along any petrol variants for us to try, so more on that later. The Tucson's diesel variant comes with a brand new 2-litre 4-cylinder engine. It puts out about 185 PS of power and 400 Newton meters of torque. Now that's more power and almost the same amount of torque that the Fortuner manages to get out of its 2.8-litre engine. Now how that translates to 0 to 100 figures, top speed figures, roll-ons, that remains to be seen with the road test. But in the real world, the engine is impressive. Like the larger 2.2-litre engine from its family that powers the Santa Fe, this one too is a quick revving motor and quite a refined one at that. Compared to the familiar 1.6-litre CRDI, the 2-litre unit is relatively louder at startup, but it settles into a smooth idle. It gets noisy again only past 4000 RPM, but you will seldom cross that mark thanks to the power and torque which comes in quite early in the rev range. The engine is mated to a variable geometry turbine and it gets electronically controlled fins. The turbocharger itself also sits very close to the exhaust chamber to reduce the travel time for the exhaust gases. Now, this entire setup essentially translates to reducing the turbo lag, and that is evident in the way this car builds up speed or gets off the line. The 6-speed manual should be a fun operator and should manage to get more juice out of this engine. But then, the Tucson isn't exactly a fun car, and since it's only available in a front-wheel drive configuration, it's not an off-roader either. A 4x4 will be added next year though. Like most other Hyundais, I expect the clutch to have a springy action on the manual transmission. Now I haven't driven one, so I can't really comment on it, but if it does, it's not going to be very convenient in the city. The one that I'm driving, of course, is the automatic, and I believe that this will be the better option to go for, considering that this is a soft loader. The torque converter is seamless in its operation and a tad slow to respond to full throttle input, especially when you're cruising, so overtakes need some planning. Upshifts on part throttle are relatively quicker. The automatic also gets you 3 driving modes: Eco, Sport and Normal. As the name suggests, Eco can set the engine to run at an eco-friendly mode by quickly shifting to higher gears. Cruising at 100 will hardly take 1400 RPM. Sport mode on the other hand will get all guns blazing and give you more performance. But accelerate hard and you will notice torque steer kicking in. The traction control evens it out though. Normal mode is a balance between the two and ideally recommended for highway use, where it will help fuel economy at cruising speeds while keeping throttle response sharp enough for overtakes. The petrol Tucson is being pitched as the urban dweller, whereas the diesel sibling is the adventure-loving kid. So it gets these 4 skid plates at the front and back to be able to tackle the broken roads better. It also comes with hill ascent control, hill descent control, auto hold functions in case you find yourself on a tricky piece of gradient. There are quite a few things that help reduce the noise and vibration levels of this cabin. It begins with the structural adhesives which have been used in place of regular nuts and bolts to put everything together. You also get flat underbody surfaces, you also get better deadening material around the wheel arches. So all that cuts the wind noise, the road noise, the engine noise. And even at about 130 kilometers an hour, the cabin remains quite silent. So be it city speeds or highway speeds, this cabin is actually a nice place to be in. The Tucson comes with all 4 disc brakes, but like the Elantra, the initial bite is a little spongy, so it's decent for city speeds, but if you want to drop the anchor authoritatively at highway speeds, you have to give quite a firm push on that brake pedal. Other safety features include 6 airbags, vehicle stability control, traction control, and a body structure which uses 51% advanced high-strength steels that promise better rigidity and impact absorption. The standard set of safety features that you get on the India spec version, the Tucson has managed to get a 5-star NCAP rating in Europe, Australia as well as America, which is a very good thing. So the Hyundai Tucson slots perfectly between the Creta and the Santa Fe, and while doing that, it gets a price tag that makes it cheaper than its closest natural rival, the Honda CR-V. But that price tag also brings it very close to 7-seater SUVs like the Fortuner and the Endeavour. However, like any other Hyundai, the Tucson is brimming with features, and the refinement levels are comparable to some of the European luxury brands. So in that sense, it clearly edges ahead of its competition when it comes to real-world performance. In fact, virtually it has no competition in the segment that it is trying to fill into. Of course, there will be the new Honda CR-V, which is also expected to come with a diesel motor, and there's also the upcoming and stunning new Renault Koleos, both of which will take the segment forward. But given Hyundai's aggressive sales, spares and warranty strategies, I think the Tucson has very little to worry about.